Yet another Chinnaswamy classic, yet another RCB CSK classic, 444 runs, the joint record for the most sixes in an IPL game. CSK hit 17, RCB hit 16, and the difference between the two ended up being 8 runs. MS Dhoni picks up the points in, well, we're not going to say it anymore, but it is the only RCB CSK game that we'll have this season. So if he is to come back to the Chinnaswamy, who knows? But for now, he ends on a happy note. And we look back at a game with lots of runs and an extraordinary partnership that had RCB well in front. Faf du Plessis and Glenn Maxwell put 126 of 61 together. How often has a partnership like that ended up on the losing side? So lots of questions to ask of Wasim, Jaffer, Tom, Moody and Shaun Tait on ESPNcricinfo T20 Time. Let me start in studio. You said it's going to be a contest of boundaries, and in the end, it's one hit or just more than one hit away. Do you still feel like after that partnership, Tom, that RCB should have won this game?
Well, they got themselves into an extraordinary position, particularly after losing Kohli early. The pressure was on, and then it just... again, I suppose it shows the experience of both Maxwell and Faf du Plessis.
Yeah.
They didn't let what happened before bother them. They didn't let the mountain that they had to climb bother them either. They just got on with business. I think Maxwell hit 8 sixes, so he was dealing in a high currency all the way through. But both of them played magnificently well and got themselves into a position to actually win the contest. But I think what was eventually shown was RCB's lack of depth when it comes to power hitters to finish games off. They've got a couple of extraordinary individuals in their side from a batting perspective, but the depth wasn't there like you would see with the Rajasthan Royals. You know, if that was a similar situation with a partnership like that, you could just see other parts of the Rajasthan lineup, for instance, you know, getting over the line, a bit like Gujarat Titans as well.
You sense that is the difference, that Kohli didn't fire today, but if RCB have to fire, they need all 3 guns to go big, and even if one doesn't and 2 do so much of the heavy lifting, they're still going to end up short.
And they ended up doing all right. I mean, I think that's been RCB's thing for 10, maybe even 15 years. I mean, that's harsh, but definitely been heavily reliant on 3 or 4 players, even back when it was Gale, obviously AB and Kohli. But yeah, I think so. I think, you know, that was Maxwell's sort of a perfect game for him to shine, which he did. But that was an important wicket. His wicket was sort of a massive turning point. Yeah. Wasim, you mentioned the name of Dinesh Karthik at our halftime show. I guess this is the kind of game you need him to finish, and there was a great opportunity to get this done because the required rate for Chinnaswamy standards was within reach. Where would RCB look back and say we should have had this game?
Well, I think the top order did the job. You probably expected either Maxwell or Faf to, you know, finish off innings because after if Dinesh Karthik doesn't do the job, they haven't got that experience or the power that you need at 5, 6, 7. So Dinesh Karthik needed to finish this game. Otherwise, there's not much power, not much experience in that lower half. That's where I feel, you know, they kind of, you know, felt light at today because looking at the CSK bowling attack, they didn't have experience. You know, everyone is pretty new. If you don't do it against this bowling attack and this ground, then it's going to be difficult. So, you know, Dinesh Karthik was the guy. They dropped him the ball before. It was him to probably finish the game off. Otherwise, you know, all the other guys are pretty less experienced.
Is it fair to say, Wasim, they are missing one quality Indian batter, and Rajat Patidar was supposed to be that batter, and once he got ruled out, perhaps we don't know how big a miss he is. They curiously replaced him with Vishak. So they went bowler for batter, almost admitting to everyone that they've got the batting resources, but they are missing one Indian batter, aren't they?
They do. And, you know, Lomro doesn't bat at number 3, even for his state team. So it's far too up for his standard. So they're definitely missing Patidar, and it puts a lot of pressure on Faf, Virat and Maxwell to come good. If they don't come good and if they don't bat deep, they are in trouble, especially while chasing or, you know, putting even because of the bowling attack, they need to post 20, 30 more. It puts a lot of pressure on those guys.
Wasim makes an interesting point about if you're not going to do it against this bowling attack, and you could see where he's coming from in Akash Singh, Tushar Deshpande, having Pathirana and Deshpande to finish your innings. Now, give me your assessment of how they bowled. Were they just, did they luck out with the spinners getting Faf and Maxwell when they did, or do you give them some credit for how they bowled at this ground?
I think when it wasn't too bad. I think when you're bowling, when there's a score on the board like that, it just takes one good over. I think even Deshpande bowled one decent over there. For example, I think that's enough at times when 220, 230s on the board. It comes down to very small moments in the game. So I think they did enough here. I think that was...
Yeah. But MS, as we know, Tom, likes to invest in his spinners, and they still bowled 9 overs, which is considerably higher than most teams tend to go. We didn't see RCB put faith in their frontline spinner. As it turns out, yet again, his spinners delivered. They got the wickets.
Yeah, particularly Jadeja. He didn't take the wickets, Jadeja, but he only went for 37 with his 4. So he was well under the actual game run rate. And I think his experience was very much went unnoticed during that whole sort of mayhem. But when you look back and dissect the game and look at that bowling performance from CSK, that's a significant spell of 4 overs, which helped bind the innings together for CSK out in the middle.
Do you sense the wickets that actually did come, credit to the spinners? 2 skiers have effectively changed the game. Either Faf or Maxi bat any longer and we could see a different result. Did they suddenly do something right? Moeen Ali also seems to show up and just nick the odd wicket, doesn't he?
To be honest with you, I don't think, whether it was pace or spin, I don't think it really mattered on that surface. The batters in both sides were, swinging themselves off their feet basically from ball 1 because they recognised that it was party time, and it was a case of, as I said in that mid-show, it's a case of just a boundary count competition. Who's going to get the most amount of 6s? Who's going to get the most amount of 4s? And as it turned out, they levelled on 4s, 12 4s each, and one side hit one more 6 than the other.
Yeah, and that pretty much is it. Would you call Kohli's wicket a huge bit of fortune for CSK when you get out like that, or did you like something you saw about Akash Singh, the impact sub, bowling a bit of left arm swing with the new ball?
I think Kohli came out very hard. You're probably not going to sit there and critique that. When you're chasing that sort of score, Virat decided that he was just going to go every ball by the look of it. I think that's what it comes down to. It's not reckless batting, and it's just a decision he made to try and assert himself early on. So I think that's where what that comes down to for me.
Yeah, I guess is this a lesson almost because they're so light outside of Kohli, Maxwell, and Faf, Wasim, that Kohli can actually take his time even in these chases. I mean, we tend to not like it either way. We sometimes say Kohli needs to go hard, he goes hard, there's always the chance he'll get out. But just looking at this team, you almost feel like Maxwell and Faf can do that. Kohli has to also fire. Otherwise, even if they get some extraordinary runs like they did today, they could fall short.
Yeah, Kohli, even while batting first, he's come out really hard, posting scores. So he looks like he's come out with a lot of energy, and he wants to impose himself on the bowlers, whereas Faf can do both the roles. We saw against Mumbai, Faf taken it on early. He was more aggressive in that chase, but he can play the other role as well. Whereas Kohli, I feel he goes really hard in the power play. And then after the power play, we have seen Kohli's strike rate also comes down when the spinners are on. It's a considerable change in his batting. But early on, I think Virat Kohli wants to go hard, and that's how he approached this inning as well. But again, saying that they are probably one batter light, which comes down to that, and that probably at 5, 6, 7. Apart from because Dinesh Karthik, if he doesn't finish games, then it's difficult for them to chase down big scores.
Can they do anything else with the resources they already have, Wasim? Shahbaz has batted at 3 in previous seasons, got the odd cameo. Today they went Prabhu Desai, they've gone Anuj Rawat in the past. Could they do anything else to just add to the rest of the batting?
Yeah, probably. They can try. Suyash Prabhu Desai actually bats for Goa at top of the order. So he is probably one of those guys who can bat at 3, and then Lomror actually bats at 5, 6, 7 for Rajasthan in his state cricket. So he can probably come down. Even for Rajasthan Royals, Lomror has batted at 5, 6. So he's probably that guy, and probably Anuj Rawat as well. He can strike. But saying that they've got is Indian guys who haven't done the job yet. They're still in tried and tested basis. So you have to probably put them in that situation and hope that they can finish off games. But I feel Suyash Prabhu Desai is better off batting at 3 rather than at 6, 7.
They can look beyond their Indian options. Manindu Hasaranga has batted 3 for Sri Lanka in World Cup cricket, in international cricket, and he seems to be outranked by pretty much everybody in this team.
Yeah, it's surprising he didn't come in earlier. I think there was a moment there where his fellow countryman was bowling, that it seemed obvious time for him to come to the crease, and he didn't come to the crease. I'd like to see him bowl 4 overs for a start.
Yep.
Before we worry about his batting, but he is, and we have seen, as you quite rightly say, for Sri Lanka, him have some, very impactful innings. He's got a nice swing of the bat and does hit it cleanly.
RCB are not making the most of these home games. They're winning one, they now lost 2 on the trot, big scores against them. So you have to perhaps point fingers at the ball and their bowling, because they can't always be chasing 210, 220. They don't have a bad bowling attack. What's missing though?
I just think it's that extra bloke standing up, the extra guy, whether it's a Harshal Patel. Siraj is doing a good job. A couple of extra overs to win into. They're going to have to get more out of him, underutilising him for sure. With him as well, there's a bigger picture there. If you even not bowling him his 4 overs tonight, going toward the rest of the tournament, that could have a bit of an impact on his confidence or his mood. I think there's got to be a bigger picture there, and moving forward, just to keep giving him more overs, give him more responsibility. He's international quality. So just the extra guy standing up with Siraj, I think, is going to be important for them.
Wasim, just thoughts on how RCB would review the bowling side of things, because they do have this strong run of games at home now. This is completed, I think, 3 home games and 6 out of 7. So this would be their 4th home game. They've won 2, lost 2. They play another 2 within April. So that's a lot of home games in this month. They still quite haven't figured out their bowling, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, their Indian bowlers, Vaishak, and even Harshal Patel's form is a concern for doubt. Harshal Patel has been off colour for a while. You can't say much about Vaishak because he's playing his 2nd game. He had a very good first game, so too much to ask from him. But Harshal Patel needs to stand up. Wayne Parnell as well, apart from Siraj, if he stands up and bowls well in the death, that could be something which will sort something out, because bowling on this ground is going to be challenging. So if they not lead too many runs, at the end of the innings, then probably the batting will come good. If not chasing 220 or 215 every time. So one of the guys need to stand up, I feel.
As we talk about CSK though, Tom, that's another very handy away win for them. We know we always tend to judge CSK by a formidable home record, and that'll come their way later in the season. And in spite of their key bowlers missing and injuries and whatnot, they seem to be getting or out batting oppositions. Just give me a review of what CSK look like 5 games in.
Well, they're finding a way, aren't they? And I think that's to do with a couple of things. I think that's to do with leadership, both on and off the field. I think that's got to do with stability, historical stability, and a culture that's been created at CSK, which they benefit from. Tight games, you need all hands on deck. And if everyone's hands are on deck and you've got a happy house, you more often than not get over the line with those tight games. But if you don't have everyone bought in to the same cause and all hands on deck, you suddenly lose a few overboard and you lose those tight games. And CSK, it's no coincidence that they win these tight games, purely because they've got a great sporting culture there and something for us all to learn from.
Yeah, when he says all hands on deck, you can see that with CSK. It wasn't one man, but it's fair to bring up Devon Conway now. We didn't give him much time. Rahane was excellent. We got finishes at the end from the lower order. Dubey was fine, but Devon Conway's held this together today, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's international quality again. It comes down to that experience and performing under pressure. So it's a big game. He's done it before for New Zealand. So I think he's a great pickup for them. And again, in that great environment like a Rahane, just the pressure comes off individual batsmen to have to do it by themselves type thing. So they got the depth down the order as well. So a great place for him to be playing.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't spend much time on him, Wasim, but that is the key difference perhaps. That one innings that allowed the others to go hard around him, which Devon Conway gave. He's supposed to be Faf du Plessis' successor in this side, and Faf got to see that they filled his shoes well.
Yeah, I mean, those 2 openers are very critical. And CSK, I mean, the team knows that they have to outbat the opponents, rather than the other way around. So they need to score quickly. They need to score 20, 30 more, and that's how they approach innings, whether batting first or defend, chasing the score. And Devon Conway, I mean, when Ruturaj gets out, he gets runs, or sometimes both of them gets runs. And it's very critical for one of the batters to bat till the end, which Devon Conway did most of the innings. And he's one of those guys who plays spin really well, doesn't let anybody settle down, whether fast bowlers or spinner. He's a high quality opener, and that's what you need. Top of the order, somebody to bat big, which he did today.
All right. RCB thankfully have a bit of a break. They will play Punjab in Mohali on Thursday. All set for them, Wasim?
Hopefully, fingers crossed.
If it's a happy house, like Tom Moody says, you guys should be fine. But I wish you all the best. Thank you very much to Wasim, Jaffer. I'll wait another game perhaps before I start talking about a mid-season review, because RCB were again a team that a lot of us thought looking good, a lot of things going well, and they could be a top 4, and all of a sudden you lose 3 or 4 games at home. You wouldn't be jumping on the concerned side for RCB just yet from what you're seeing, or is it getting tougher now with what you've seen from the other teams?
No, I'm not concerned. I wasn't one that felt that they'd end up at the pointy end of the tournament, personally. But I think we also need to recognise, and they're not on their own here, but I think they are desperately, because of their home conditions, desperately missing Hazlewood and Topley.
Yes.
So if Hazlewood was fit, it would be their first choice. He would have played every game, and I think if they were batting the way they're batting and they had Hazlewood in that attack, I think we would have had different outcomes. And if Hazlewood wasn't fit and Topley remained fit, even though he only bowled the one over, I think that would have made a significant difference.
Yes.
So, every team's got a story when it comes to injuries, but I think that particular story for them is significant for that home venue.
As it turns out, though, we are waiting on Josh Hazlewood's fitness, so we shall see how that pans out. Right, that's pretty much it. Thank you very much to Shaun Tait and Tom Moody, as well as Wasim Jaffer on ESPNcricinfo T20 Timeout. It's another classic. We'll remember this one as we tend to remember the RCB CSK games. It's a shame it'll be the only one this season, but that's only in the league phase. Who knows if they end up meeting closer to the end of the tournament. We'll see you tomorrow for Sunrisers against Mumbai. Make sure you download the ESPNcricinfo mobile app to stay up to date with news from both camps, how each team reacts to this win. I'm sure there'll be plenty said by both CSK and RCB. Thank you for your company. We'll see you tomorrow. Good night.